Welcome everyone to my Etude Opus 10 number 1 tutorial by Chopin. First of all, I get criticized all the time for using Henley with Chopin. It's not my primary resource, though I do find it better than some people tend to, and I typically go with the Etude. It's not terribly important for an etude like this, as there aren't really that many markings, but just thought I would start with that. So also, it's important to really take into consideration here that I don't believe one tutorial, no matter who it's from, whether it's myself, Garrick Olson, or 500 other, piano teachers online, I don't think that one video could possibly solve all of the issues of such an etude. Think of this video as simply a collection of strategies to try out, some which will be beneficial, some may not be beneficial. And that's because everyone has different hands, the strength, the spread, the thickness of the fingers, and even more importantly, everyone has a different mind, the ability to process something or think in such a way that allows their hand to move with great freedom. So there's not one proper way of handling this etude, and anyone that says there is, it really only works for them. It does not most likely work for everyone else. If there were such a solution or method to creating total fluency in this piece, I believe that everyone would know about it by now. So let's just start with some basics on how to practice it. Now, I should probably play a little bit for you just to prove that I can, and unfortunately, I have to acknowledge I have never mastered this etude, though I have performed it live on stage once, and I have not practiced it in probably 8 or 9 years. So bear with me. I will definitely make some mistakes here, not trying to show that I'm perfect at it, but at least that I have enough fluency that hopefully you can trust that some of these things will bring you one step closer to an end product. So here we go. Totally unwarmed up. And so on. I mean, I'm not going to play the whole piece right now. A couple mistakes in there. That's representative of the approximate level I got it. Now, probably when I was working on it, it was 10% more accurate. I don't know that I ever got it faster than that, but certainly a little bit more crispy. So in any case, let me just sort of share what I did to, first of all, think about it, and second of all, to get it more comfortable, and then finally to build speed. Many of these strategies are not necessarily speed related, they're just related to how we move and can feel comfortable with such a piece. So, for most of the measures on the whole thing, there's a 4-note pattern that repeats 4 times going up and 4 times going down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then down 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. There are a few exceptions to this, notably. I'll go through it maybe the first 5 or 6. In measure 3 and 4, first of all, we have F on the top, F, 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 and then we have E coming down. And at the last beat, D. This brings up an interesting point. You have to be very careful throughout this whole piece to read it carefully, because you might look at the first arpeggio and then just kind of learn the pattern and guess. And a lot of people miss, example, measure 5 at the end, that there's an A there instead of a B, which would have followed the pattern from before it. So there's a measure 3 to 4, a change. Within measure 5, there's a change. There's a change, of course, in measure 8, which most people notice this one because it stands out with the black key sharp, but still, D natural, D sharp. These kinds of things tend to throw people off. And there are several more throughout the whole piece. So just be very careful as you're learning it to not ingrain the wrong pattern. It's hard enough as is. You don't want to learn it wrong and then have to fix everything. So what I like to do is think about blocking. This is, if I were to categorize this as I go along here, strategy number 1, blocking the hands. And the reason for this is because if you're just playing one note at a time, the rest of your hand may be doing all sorts of things that aren't going to help you actually get to the final product. But if you're blocking it, you're playing at least 2 notes at a time, if not 3 or 4. And what the advantage of that is you start to see positions that you're moving from one to the other, rather than just a bunch of chops that you hope land on the right key. So, blocking. Let's take the first 2 notes, for instance, and instead of playing C, G, one after the other, we're going to play them as a group. Now, you would continue to do this every time. So basically what we're going to do is take the first 2 of every 4 as a block and the other 2 as single notes. And because we're taking 2 of them at the same time, it turns a group of 4 notes into what sounds like a group of 3 notes, simply because the amount is condensed together. So you could practice really the whole etude in such a way. Now you cannot connect it because I have to lift here in order to get to the block. That's okay. We'll solve the connection and the legato a different way with a different strategy, but this just at least gets some of the accuracy of the spreads more locked into your fingers. And then see, I'm blocking the same 2. And so on. Personally, this is one of my very favorite ways of practicing this etude, or at least it was when I was learning it. And yeah, you get a lot of mileage out of that one, because what most people miss is the first 2 notes of every gesture. It's that initial thumb to pointer finger, because that's the big stretch, especially in, I'll address this later, measure 23, the B-A-B, which is the second hardest measure of the whole piece, in my opinion. Most likely to mess up, is why I would say that's the hardest, the second hardest. The first hardest is the A major, because of the A to C sharp distance from the 4th to the 5th finger. You have to get the elbow very involved there to almost play that with comfort. Not totally. I don't think that measure is ever fully comfortable. In any case, back to the blocking. I first suggested to just block the first 2 and play the next 2 individually. You could actually change up any combination. So you could do, for example, single note, then block the next 2, the 2nd and 3rd note, and then play the 4th note on its own. So we're still turning a 4-note pattern into 3, blocking at just a different spot. Now, one thing you'll see on my other camera angle over here is that I have a double finger in the middle thing here. I'm not actually reaching the whole thing. Now, I can, and I will fully acknowledge that I can even stretch this one with great discomfort. Does that mean I keep my hand stretched out and play it? No, it does not. In fact, I would never play it like that, because that's a recipe for holding over tension and over whatever it is, I don't know, 60 measures, 78 measures of 16th notes up and down. You're going to get extremely tight, maybe even have pain, and you won't be able to maintain the speed or the lightness, which some of this piece is light and other parts is not. It starts forte, of course, but still, you don't want to have these stretchy feelings. And that's also hopefully comforting, because most of my audience is, I'm guessing, having somewhere around an octave to a 9th as a total stretch, versus I, who can reach an 11th with problems. On a very, very, very good day, I can get the C to G down, only with the help of the other hand. So in any case, it's not my big hand that I believe makes this easier. It's the fact that I've gotten very good at stretching 2 notes at a time, and this is the way I did it, is through blocking. See, because what happens, again, on my other camera here, we get 2 in the middle. Now look at my pinky. I'm not actually stretching the E. I stretch up to the 2 in the middle, and then I contract the thumb in to make it easier to get to the pinky. See, so I didn't actually keep my hand out. Though, again, even though I could, I don't do that. I bring relief to the thumb before I ask the pinky to go into the discomfort zone. Now I do it again. Extend the hand, bring the thumb in, stretch the pinky. So it's always adjusting the expansion and the contraction of the hand. That's what I believe this etude is all about. It is not one position and not just big hands, it's about the expansion and the contraction. Constantly going back and forth. He wrote it in such a way that you have to do it that way just to get by. And this is a technique that a lot of people need. You can use it in other parts, in Mozart sonatas, or in Liszt pieces, or even in other Chopin, like the first Ballade, for example. See this run right here, the hand is in a ball. It's kind of curled, almost in a wad. But immediately, A to G, there is quite a large stretch here that basically what that means is you're going from the wad to the stretch in a second. Well, really more like a tenth of a second. And then immediately back, because the thumb comes from the A back up to the E natural, or even the F, depending on your fingering. So you don't have a lot of time going from tight to expanded to tight again. And I don't mean physically tight, I just mean crowded. Is probably a better word. Expand, crowd, expand, and so on and so forth. These things become much easier when you have worked even at half tempo on an etude like this, because you're doing so much of that motion becomes nearly instantaneous for you. So, back to the blocking, we could do one final version where you play the first two notes separate, and then you block the top two, which is especially helpful in finding the security and balance of the top two fingers, which are quite weak. So, single, single, double, single, single, double, and so on. And so on and so forth. Okay, now that's about the only way. Theoretically, you could actually block the last note with the first note of the next position, and that would be the same notes, but it would change the fingering, because you could go like single, single. Now we're actually going double, but the pinky with the next one. So it's 5 and 1. Now we go single, single, double, single, single, double, single, single. And then it kind of throws the pattern off at the top. But the idea is you're grouping the contracted part of the hand. This is so helpful right here in getting this 5 and 1 when they're very close together. So incredibly helpful. So basically just block every possible combination. I'm quite confident that 90%, if not more, of the viewers of this video have not tried this, at least in as many combinations as I have suggested. If you have tried it, most likely you got results from it. But if you have not tried every one, try the other ones and you'll realize right away that's where some of the security was missing. So the next strategy for if you're gonna kind of move towards playing single notes, which of course we need to, is to think about the dead center of the keys. Now, I've talked about this in my videos probably 100 times in the past. That might not even be an exaggeration, given I have 400 videos, and it's one of my most popular concepts. But the idea of not just landing on the sides of the keys, like here or like there, but instead right in the middle. Now, you can see up close here with this angle that the fingernail should line with the middle of the key. And when I move it to the side, though I'm playing the same note, see, that was the left, the right, and the middle, they sound the same. But those are three totally different feelings when it goes from note to note. So let's say I play the left side of the C and the right side of the A, or the G, sorry. That's going to feel almost like the interval of a sixth, even though it's a fifth, simply because my hands are spread out too far. Similarly, if I play the right side of the C and the left side of the G, that's going to feel almost like a fourth because my hand is more contracted. But if I play the middle of the C and the middle of the G, I get a much better feel of what a fifth actually feels like. And then if I do this on every combination, 2 to 4, middle, and so on and so forth, what happens is my hand will actually get muscle memory faster. This is because if you're consistent with where you land every time, you're building that exact micro security, basically, that is not there if you're hitting the right note but always in a different spot. So be very intentional about this. One of the main reasons to practice this etude slowly is so that you not only hit the right notes, but you hit them in the right place. It's just so crucially important that you develop that, because the faster you go, the more nearly impossible it becomes to recall these stretches under pressure. This will build that faster than anything that I personally know. So that whole thing would have been strategy number 2. Strategy 1 was blocking, strategy number 2 was the dead center of the key, or what I call the bullseye principle. Strategy number 3 now is the idea of using overlapping. Also a concept that I've talked about several times in the past, but basically you hold 2 notes down at a time. And it's different than blocking because you're not putting them down together. You're still individually putting them down, but you're holding them into each other to get the feeling and the security that blocking gives, but the clarity and the articulation that single notes give. So you alternate between 1 note down and 2 notes down. Now you lift the previous note before going to the next one. So you go 2 notes down, 1 note down, 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 and so on and so forth. And what that actually does is gives you the relaxation in the bottom of the key with each stretch. While also providing the articulation of each finger going down. Now, this is only a slow practice technique, and you can't do it like extremely fast. That's not the point. The point is to get you comfortable. And this etude, for the most part, is not comfortable. So this exercise will definitely take you that much closer to it. It's really that simple. It can also help to think, if the number of notes down doesn't help you, it can help to just think on and off. Because the on is when you're playing 2 notes. On, the off is when you're releasing the previous finger. So on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. Now I'm going to exaggerate for this other closer angle here. I wouldn't lift the fingers this high, but I just really want you to see this. See how high this came up? How high that came up? How high that came up? How high my pinky comes up. This is, don't do that, but I just want you to know how this works. It would look like this. And I want you to hear something when I press a key silently. If I get close enough with my mic here, listen to the release. I'll do that one more time. There's like a little knock in the wood. Hopefully you can hear that because the mic's on my chest and I'm trying to get it close. But if you're doing this right, you will hear that lift sound of the key in between every note that you're playing. So you have to go very slow so that you have time to put in 2 strokes, both the down and the up, on every note you're playing. So a good amount of that's a great way to warm up actually, is alternate days, like one day do blocking, the next day do the overlapping, and go back and forth. So you're not getting used to just one or the other. Strategy number 4, this would be a little bit more typical of what you might hear from other teachers, but it would still provide plenty of benefit, and that is the idea of rhythm practice. So short, long, long, short, right? So like short, long, short, and then long, short, like pausing on the first one. and so on and so forth. The reason this is helpful mainly is it just kind of forces you to get to the next position a little bit faster, which causes you to think ahead and to not get so stuck, because really this piece doesn't feel even when you're playing it evenly. The rhythm is even, but the movement itself at moments will feel quite a bit faster than the previous movement, usually the opening of the hand. So the reason rhythm helps is just to kind of get you that much closer to the speed side of it. Now, this isn't really a strategy, so I can't call it strategy number 5, but one thing that Garrick Olson brought out in his tone-based video on this, which I found extremely helpful to think about, is the fact that when one opens the hand, naturally the thumb drops. See, if I just hold it in a claw, or for the other camera, in sort of a claw, and I just open it like this, watch my thumb. I went from here to lower. And what that means is if you're in position with the hand closed and you open it, then your thumb takes care of itself. And that means I don't have to consciously play the thumb. I don't have to drop it and then open the hand. I can do all of that in one gesture. It may not seem like that makes much of a difference, except for the fact that this is presumably lightning tempo. Which, by the way, I should talk about that really quickly. Completely separate topic, 2 different branch topics from this on how fast should we actually play these etudes. I completely disagree with Wim Winters on this, about the whole half beat, half tempo thing. At the same time, he has a point about not going at full speed, but I don't think that his conclusion is correct. I don't know that many pianists that play the entire set of the etudes. There's really not that many in history that have done it. And those that have at least a few of them that they don't play at full tempo, I mean. Now, there are at least one recording of every etude that writes them as fast or faster than Chopin. Martha Argerich definitely meets the 176 here, which for reference is nearly impossible. Then, of course, Richter, Opus 10, number 4, he matches that. In fact, technically, he goes far beyond it. Opus 10, number 4 is written at 88 for the half note, which would be this. Nearly impossible. Right? Richter, the famous recording where he's in the black and white in that like little cabin thing, I clocked it at averaging 217 beats per minute, which is about 109-ish for the half note. So just to put that in perspective, I'll put it at 108. And that would be... Except he actually manages to get more clarity than I do. The point is, okay, so we've got Richter 10-4, we've got Argerich 10 number 1, and we have plenty of other people that have played an etude or two at or above Chopin's indication. That does not mean that everyone should play it at that tempo, nor that somebody should play all the etudes at their written tempo. I think it's a miracle if you can play even a couple of the etudes at about 3/4 tempo. They're just really hard pieces, and I've spent more than half of the last decade working on 19 of them to a fair amount of fluency. They all give me challenges in ways that I can't explain. Or I guess I could if I had hours, but I bring this up because I really believe that the value in these etudes is remembering their title, which is study. It's something that you study. It's not, yes, it works as a performance, but it's not really meant to be performed. That changes later, where you have, of course, Liszt with the transcendental etudes, Rachmaninoff with the etude pictures. The goal then was to bring them to the concert stage. I don't even think, some people disagree here, but I don't think that Chopin meant for these to be performed. I think he wrote them super fast to basically say that you can never actually learn everything possible from these pieces. In fact, the only way to really get from them is to study them your whole life. And that would, if you have 176 as the tempo, it's like, well, if you can improve nothing else, you could get a little bit faster or a little bit closer to that tempo. But even Garrick Olson says 144 here is respectable. And indeed, it really is. That's plenty fast. That's exciting. It's flowing. You can hear every note. Nerve-inducing, So why not, right? Take it significantly slower than he wrote it, even if you have an incredible technique. And for that matter, every etude is written too fast. Most people don't even come close to the revolutionary etude on how quickly he actually wrote it. Average speed maybe. Right, but it's also at 76 for the half. So I promise I'm done with tempo after this, but. Yeah, this is, most people really don't match this. Come on. See, I'm already falling behind. It's really quite rapid when you really think about that, especially these passages. Which you can make sound better if you just fake it and play a good right hand. But the thing is the integrity of every note is incredibly important, and taking it at full tempo is just not really the goal, I believe. So back to Opus 10 number 1. We play at a slow tempo even in performance, and well, slowish, but even more so when we're practicing it, getting everything right should be the focus. And at the high tempo, the thing about Garrick mentioning the opening of the hand is that you're really only having to play 3 notes out of every 4. If you go open, and that takes care of the thumb, now you articulate these 3. And then you just open the hand again, and that articulates the thumb for you. So I found that incredibly insightful and helpful because I used to really be like a hammer with the thumb. And I would slap it down every time, and that was way too much work. So though I haven't really put in serious amount of time with that strategy, it did really reframe the way I thought about it, and many other passages for that matter since, like in Third Scherzo or something. It's not like slapping the thumb, but rather reopening the hand, which helps you get the thumb and get to the notes that follow. So it kills 2 birds with 1 stone. In any case, here would be the last strategy, which I believe is number 5. And it's just some things to do to basically increase your speed. So we've taken care of the accuracy, the comfort at the bottom of the key, the legato, and all of that. The next thing you really have to do is just do anything you can to think of it differently so that you're not locking into a wooden pattern and getting bored. You make it harder by manipulating the passage and thus making the original version easier, at least in perspective. Maybe it's still quite challenging, but you can vary where the accents are. So accenting only the first of each one, or just the second of each one, and then the third, and the fourth finally, which is actually how it's written if you really look at the music. And there's value in all options because they all teach you where the center of gravity is for that finger. And you don't do this by jamming your arm, you do it by just sort of pulling the fingertip in. See, I take the knuckle and I pull it as if I'm making a fist. So what I don't want to see you do is slam your whole arm down and complain that you have tension, because that's not going to help. We don't get accents that way. Do it by pulling in at a faster speed. Now, I kept this as the last strategy on purpose because you can't do this until you already have a fluent feel of the pattern. If you're feeling really jerky in it, do not do this at all. It will mess up your hands. So get the other 4 strategies taken care of and practice them for a few weeks, then come back to this and see what happens. But anyway, the shifting accents is really good. Then also kind of similar to that, it's what I call the takeaway practicing, where you take away a note on purpose to understand the notes around it better. So for example, what if we did not play thumbs in this at all? Like you just basically ghost over the key surface and pretend it's not there. And then see, by removing that security, what we're actually doing for the hand here is developing confidence in the fingers that are playing, but actually more confidence in the one that is not playing, because by not hearing it, you really have to be sure that you had it right, that you're on top of the key. Now, to make it yet harder than that, do the same thing, but don't put a break. So turn a 4-note pattern into a true triplet. And it forces you to move faster and to really glide over it with effortless playing. Now, I haven't done that much for this etude, but it was a game changer in Opus 10 number 8. And just getting more of the lightness and the speed. I took like the first, third, and fourth. And then, this kind of thing, but all sorts of different combinations. And by not having that 4th note, I lost the security of the whole passage, which then caused me to be even more secure when it was back. So I can't emphasize that enough. And you might be overwhelmed, like, oh goodness, this is not only 5 strategies, there's like 4 or 5 different ways to branch off one of these strategies. We're looking at, potentially 15 to 20 different ways to practice this etude already. And I could keep going, but I'm going to stop it with this as the last one. Don't get overwhelmed by that. In fact, that is what I believe to be the saving grace of practice, is that you're not limited to practicing just one way. You have these options to make it more interesting for yourself and to gain perspective, because the more you understand all the angles of something, it's like turning a diamond and seeing its different facets. You're able to then come back and play with full authority, even though you're looking at only one side of it while you're playing. You've studied the other sides, and it gives you that much more confidence, security, and comfort. So in leaving notes out, in accenting things, in changing the rhythms, in overlapping, in blocking, you're learning things about the passage that you just can't learn if you were to play slowly and put in 1,000 reps. I think it's better to do like 20 different ways and put in 15 reps each, and you're actually ultimately going to gain a lot more from that in the long run. So it also makes it more fun, because how boring is it to just practice this piece for 6 months straight and still not really have that much progress on it? Even if you did progress, it would still be boring to practice this way. So it changes it up. It's a lot to remember, but it's also a lot to enjoy. And the whole process becomes, in my opinion, so much more fun. So I could talk all day on this and all of the other Chopin etudes. As I mentioned, I've worked on 19 of them myself. But the thing is it's mainly, if you learned any one thing from this video that's not super specific to this one or to the notes, I would hope it would be what I just said. Just to enjoy the process and to just keep experimenting and trying as many different ways as you can to understand this music. Because the more you can do that, the more you will learn it faster, not just in tempo, but in terms of how long it takes you to learn. And the more you will actually then be able to carry that skill into a similar piece later, because you've done all of the branches of that skill, not just that one exact utterance of it. So if you have any questions, reach out, ap@aaronpetitpiano.com. I do private coaching, and I also have a group called Key Learners Piano Club, where we talk about all sorts of nerdy stuff like this all the time. In fact, this very video is just a bonus for one of the members there who wanted some tips on Opus 10 number 1. And I'm like, you know what? I've gotten this requested like 500 times over the years. Why don't I do it? But see, I only did it because he was in my membership, and I was like, hey, let's give him a little bit of extra. So if you want to check that out, just reach out and let me know, and we can talk about what's available in the club. And at the very least, get my free piano guide that I will put in the description. It's always the top link in all of my YouTube videos. Over 2,000 people have downloaded it now, and it will bring so much clarity on just this kind of stuff we talk about today and how you can completely rethink piano playing and find new strategies for your practice. So enjoy, thanks for watching, see you next time.